Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, right before we started recording, I changed my Zoom background. The background that I have behind me right now is the opening kickoff of the Oregon game. But I noticed just now when I titled it, I forgot the end. So it's now the opening kickoff of the Maryland game, which is extremely Midwestern of me.
Very nice. I look at my background. I have this same exact vantage point, but it's a little bit wider of your shot, except it was before the most recent home game, so not exactly the same. But also, I probably I did not bother to edit or spell mine. It was just a shot from my phone. So if there's any mistakes with the spelling, blame Samsung.
I always do.
Mm-hmm. Plenty of blame to go around. The phone does not at least explode in my hands anymore. So that's cool. I love that. Time we talked to Ryan Day today, he had his weekly radio show and also his weekly 10-minute lightning round where we throw some questions at him. He asks or he answers. And we'll also talk a little bit about Maryland. From day to day, I think let's just mention Jansen done for the season. Ryan Day terms a long-term injury, and for him, that's generally code for season ender. Mm-hmm. And I knew as I'm typing this out and I'm typing long-term injury, people are going to read it and like how long-term is is this the end of his career? No, just expect that he'll be back next year. And this is a tough situation for him right now. He was playing well in special teams, coming on according to Day, but we see it every year. Somebody tears an ACL or whatever. I don't even know if they've released the information on what this is, but somebody goes down and it's like the end of the world for that person, but then they come back next year. And how many times have we heard these guys say like, it was a blessing in disguise and this and that. And, there's so many guys have gone through this, that there's so much support for anybody who goes through it now that it's I don't want to say it's beneficial, but there are people there to get you through it.
Right. And, this is not the first time. If it's a knee injury, it's not the first knee injury the medical team at Ohio State has seen. If it's an ankle injury, it's not the first ankle injury the medical team at Ohio State has ever seen. I mean, we're going to be talking later on in the show about Marcus Crowley, who 2 years ago, the last time Maryland was here, blew out his knee in a pretty terrible fashion and then missed basically all of the following year and, barely came on at the end of last year and really hasn't looked like pre-injury Marcus Crowley until pretty recently. So, it's one of those things where if you come all the way back, then it's, it can be valuable lessons you learn. You just hope that they can come all the way back. And, with assuming the Jansen Dunn thing is, like you said, an ACL thing or something like that, that's generally something like one of those is not going to be a career ender. It's when you have like chronic issues that's when it becomes more of a concern. Doesn't sound like that's anywhere close to where Jansen Dunn is right now.
And we've seen Court Williams coming back from his injury and sprinkling in there and getting more and more playing time. Let's talk about Marcus Crowley. Ryan Day on his radio show talking about the running backs said that Master Teague has been running hard. Marcus Crowley has been running violently. And that's what we would see from him his true freshman year, where he was just this guy that could get into the scrum and mix it up, but it would also break some long ones. And he has become when you ask me on the morning scoop, who is the backup running back? Who is the number 2 running back right now? A lot of that intrigue is because of what Marcus Crowley is doing. And I think he is just getting started and he's going to get better and better, which is great to see because he's a guy that could have been written off. He entered the season as the number 4 running back, and now we're talking about, hey, is he the number 2 guy right now?
Yeah, he's someone who I think, based on what we've seen recently, I would say there's a decent possibility he ends the season as the number 2 running back behind Travion Henderson. I don't know if he's there quite yet, and they're still going to be kind of mixing and matching guys a little bit to, situationally and all that, but he finally looks like Marcus Crowley again. Like that freshman year in 2019, he was so impressive. And he averaged eight something yards a carry, 9 something yards a carry. Like both he and Steele Chambers just had like ridiculous numbers that freshman year of 2019. And then he got hurt and just like you forgot about him. I mean, he's one of those guys who, when you were talking about the running backs, it was like, well, you've got Travion Henderson, you get Master Teague, you got Mayan Williams. Oh yeah. Marcus Crowley's still there too. And, Cam Martinez was like that sometimes for me in the defensive backfield, where you're thinking about like the true freshman outside corners and you're thinking about the safeties. And then, oh, right, Cam Martinez, I forgot about him. Both of those guys now have like taken a big step forward this year, where they've gone from not just afterthought to like person you remember, but afterthought to like potentially really significant contributors. Ohio State needs another running back behind Travion Henderson, who can be that explosive guy. You really want that explosive guy. And, Master Teague has hit big plays, obviously, over the years, and Mayan Williams has hit some big plays, but those are both guys who have struggled with consistency as well. If Crowley can be both consistent and explosive, and, violently is a word that college football coaches say, and they mean it in the absolute best possible way. That is like, when you're talking about a linebacker, he's a violent linebacker, a running back, he's runs violently. Like, that's like the highest compliment a coach could pay to a guy. So that sounds like, from what Ryan Day is saying, Marcus Crowley is well on his way to being a significant contributor to this team.
And I see him being a guy who can create big plays where maybe they're not perfectly blocked. We know Master Teague has that straight end speed, a top end speed, but it's more of a straight line and it has to be well blocked. If he's going to go 70, he needs that lane. Crowley can work for a lane, create a little bit of a lane himself. Travion Henderson is just on a whole different level of everybody. But Crowley is a guy who can make more out of nothing. And then when there is nothing, he's just going to run as hard as he can and lift those legs up and lift those knees up. And if they happen to, connect with somebody's jaw, coaches will applaud. And, so yes, football can be violent. And you just, when you're running the ball and there's 18, 16 guys within 10 feet of each other, it's going to get a little cozy in there, and not in a nice way, but in a very bad way. And they will continue to play depth at running back. It's going to be hard for that fourth guy, whoever it is, and it may be a rotating fourth guy, kind of has been this season. It's going to be hard for him to get any more than blowout touches in the rest of the season, I think.
Well, that's assuming everyone's healthy. And
yes.
Mayan Williams didn't play last week. You've seen guys banged up. Master Teague had a pretty serious injury, a year ago, something like that. That was during the pandemic. So that was like right at the beginning of spring practice 2020. Master Teague had a pretty serious injury. That's just kind of the nature of football. Like, it is a violent game, so not everyone is going to be 100% healthy at any given time. But if all four guys are, you're right. I mean, that's even getting three guys like regular rotational carries is difficult. Like, Alabama has tried that at some times in the past, and it's like, when it was like Damian Harris and those guys a couple of years ago, they'd end up with like 8 carries a game, 10 carries a game. And it's like, well, everyone's getting about the same. But you always hear about running backs talking about like needing to get into the flow into the game and get into the rhythm of the game. That's hard to do if you're rotating carries. So then you either have running backs who don't feel like they're in the flow or the rhythm of the game, or you have running backs who are annoyed because they aren't getting regular carries. And that's a tough thing to balance. You had a note, and I did not listen to the beginning of the coaches show today on the radio because I know you're there to give me my cliff notes, so I didn't need to do it. But you had one about dealing with parents, and he said the quote was, "Some days are better than others." I assume the context there is around this kind of conversation, not necessarily at running back, but at any position. Like, hey, you recruited my son and said my son was good enough to play at Ohio State. Why is my son not playing at Ohio State? Was that the context? And if kind of explain what Day had to say about that.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly. And just in the idea that, because he went on to talk about it and saying, like, when parents just kind of let go and let the team handle things, when they return the son to them in 4 to 5 years, they return a very mature product, a mature young man. And it's hard to do that. This is me saying this, but it's hard to do that when the parents won't let go. It's hard to create an adult if the parents are there still, the helicoptering, and they won't let go. And if your parents never let you go, you really don't ever get to grow up. And so yes, dealing with parents, some days are better than others. And you know exactly what it means in terms of, because parents have access to Ryan Day. They can call him, they can text him, and I'm sure some do that more than others. But like you don't want parents who are just like completely out of the picture. You want them involved because involved parents are better than just not. But trusting parents, parents trusting the coaches rather, that is what I think is the best product that produces the best product. But also, you do want to keep up with your sons. Like, well, what's going on? And it's okay to, hey, coach, how are things? Is there anything I can do? That sort of stuff. But it's the ones who are like, yes, why isn't my son playing? And so-and-so's son is playing. And I think this is no matter where you are in coaching, except for maybe the NFL, you're probably going to have parents chirping in. I don't know that, like, say, Ted Washington, when he was like 37 years old playing for the Chicago Bears as a 380-pound defensive tackle, I don't know that his parents were exactly like, hey, why isn't my son Ted playing more? Like, okay, maybe at the NFL level, you don't get that anymore. But every other level before that, from, baby leagues, I don't even know if that is a thing. But
you want to know if youth sports parents complain about playing time? That is your question?
No, I'm saying it does. But
I was going to say, tell me you've never coached youth sports without telling me you've never coached youth sports. Yeah, that it's something that you hear about. Like, my town has a recreation department, and they have like a preseason meeting every year for all the parents to, hey, it's flag football season again. We're going to have our annual flag football meeting. And, it's a parent meeting, and it's just, here, here's good sportsmanship. And, hey, your kids are watching, don't misbehave on the sidelines. And, if you have an issue with a coach, like, wait 24 hours. Don't immediately fire off an email as soon as you get home, or confront them at the field. Like, wait 24 hours. And, if you have questions about playing time and stuff like that, don't call the rec. Wait 24 hours and then talk to the coach. This is for like 8-year-old baseball, third grade flag football. Like, this is stuff that they feel compelled to tell you because this has been an issue in the past. Like, that's just how it is. And that goes all the way up to college. Like you said, college is just like transitional time in your life. That's what college is about. It's about learning, making mistakes, learning how to fix your mistakes, like living on your own. I mean, that's everything from now mom's not there to do your laundry. So you got to make sure, if you have not learned how to do laundry yet, you better figure it out pretty soon. And perhaps cooking for yourself, because you can't go to the union every single day and just get Mark Pie's Express every single day. Like, you've got to, this is like, I see you making a thinking face. Like, could I? No, you can't. And then, so you're learning about all that kind of stuff, and you're learning about dealing with problems and handling your problems. Like, if you have a problem with a professor, or a question about a test, or, hey, I'm not doing this great in this class, what can I do to help my grade? You don't want your mom sending that email. Like, the whole point of college is, this is your problem. My daughter is in 6th grade right now, and the teachers have basically said, like, we don't want to hear from you. We want your kids to start being the ones who are handling this kind of stuff, except in like, okay, this is really continuing to be an issue. You're supposed to slowly be releasing. That's literally what parenting is like preparing your kids to be adults. So yeah, I'm sure it's a challenge, because this is football. This is not just 6th grade social studies. This is college football, when a good college football season can mean a lot of NIL money right now. It can also mean a big NFL contract in a year or two. So there's an awful lot at stake. These parents are all, have been involved for an awful long time. So you understand why they, why they're extremely invested in this from all of those different perspectives. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, this has to kind of be the kid's decision. This has to kind of be the kid's, I say kid, like it's not, a 300-pound offensive lineman who could squash me like a bug. But, these small children, these small, precious little children who play football for Ohio State, it's ultimately up to them to handle these situations and learn how to deal with stuff. Because, mama's not going to be there when you're a professional in a couple of years.
Why can't things just be simple, like back when I was playing Little League as a kid, where parents just show up, sit in the bleachers or in their lawn chairs, coolers of beer, and they yell at their children instead of the coaches? Just yell at the kids, but no, don't need to yell at the coaches.
Yes, don't yell at the coaches. Don't yell at the umpires either. Stop yelling at the umpires. Stop yelling at the umpires. No. This is why no one wants to umpire or ref a game anymore in hockey or football or baseball. Like, stop it. Stop yelling at the umpires. Let the coaches handle it.
It is so bad. And There will eventually be no umpires left anywhere, and the umpire for strike zones is just going to be a backstop with square tape. And if you hit that, it's a strike. Congratulations. And because robot umpires are very expensive at all levels and very clunky, but that's another show. Whenever we talk about Ronnie Hickman, and this is probably the last thing I want to touch on with the Buckeyes before we get to Maryland. You mentioned Marcus Crowley as being one of those forgotten guys. Cameron Martinez being one of those forgotten guys when we talked about the Buckeyes before the season. For me, Ronnie Hickman is another. We're like, well, yes, he's playing the same position as Craig Young, but I think we know how this is going to go. Craig Young is going to be everywhere. He's going to be making plays. Ronnie Hickman doesn't have the size to hold up there, and he'll be the passing down bullet. And that's been absolutely not the case, and been playing so well that they're trying to find new stuff for Craig Young. And, he, like Ronnie Hickman is, I saw somebody say, yeah, but he gave up the 75-yard touchdown last week, whatever. He was in coverage and got beat on a crossing route. That happens to everybody. He has done so much more than what I expected, I think what most people expected, and solidifying a defense now that can play two safeties and give different looks and can do different things. And I'm not saying it's like, I don't know what percentage of the defense falling into place is based on him being able to do a bunch of different things. But I've said it before, it's much like Pete Werner being able to do a bunch of different things, and that solidifying everything because he can do whatever you need, and they can change things on the fly from one play to another. And there's no disadvantage having Ronnie Hickman in there. And I think that's what we've been seeing. Like, he doesn't provide a disadvantage for the Buckeye defense and they will take him out on short yardage, and that's fine because they have to. But if they didn't have time to, or they have time to do it, like if they didn't have time for it, he could stay in there and do just fine for me.
Sure. If you can do multiple things, that makes you a lot less predictable on defense, because it's not like, whoa, there's their, there's their corner who always blitzes. Like, I wonder what he's going to do. Like, it makes you a lot less predictable when you can be in coverage or in run support, or it just sit back in zone somewhere. I mean, that is the kind of thing that allows you to do so many different things. Pete Werner is a great example. I mean, Pete Werner a couple of years ago, he was a linebacker. He was like, yes, he can absolutely mash faces in the run game. He can also run in coverage. And also, like, you're not going to do this every play, but every once in a while, you can just drop him deep in the middle of the field as the deep center field safety, and he'll be fine. That makes you so much more unpredictable for the other offense. And you go back to the first couple of weeks of the season, like, what were the big complaints? The big complaints were they keep doing the same things and they're extraordinarily predictable. And once you're extraordinarily predictable, like, there is a kind of play or a series of plays that will beat whatever defense it is. So if the other team knows, hey, this is the defense they're going to run because they always run this, you run the plays that can beat that kind of defense. There's another defense that will stop that type of plays and be vulnerable to something else. You got to mix those things up. But if you're unpredictable in terms of, having these personnel who can do a bunch of different things, that makes it much harder for the team to figure out what you're doing, and gives you a lot more options, which, options are good, especially when they're good options. And, Ronnie Hickman has been first or second on the team in tackles in 4 of the first 5 games. Like, yeah, that means he's a good option.
Yeah. And I'm just looking, I asked Brian Day about defensive ends and defensive tackles and their sack competition this year. And he mentioned the different looks that the Buckeyes are able to give now probably helps them get to the quarterback more, because the quarterback is holding on to the ball a little bit more. And that all, I completely agree with that. But then you look at the numbers, and they may be hurrying the quarterbacks, but if you take out the 9 sacks against Akron, they have 5 sacks in 4 games this year. And they got to the Rutgers quarterback once last week. Now we bring in Maryland. Maryland leads the Big Ten. They've only allowed 6 sacks in 5 games this year. And they have protected Talia Tagovailoa very, very well. And Iowa didn't even get to him once last week. But I have a theory for why, Tom. They view, like, anytime they probably going in the game, they're like, if we sack him, that's a bad play, because when we sack him, he can't throw the ball to us. Mm-hmm. So what we'll do, don't don't tackle him. Just, get after him and woo, and let him throw the ball. And that way we could just intercept him, because anytime you tackle him, that's a missed opportunity for an interception. Now, I don't know that the Buckeyes are going to be that same way. I think they're going to still try to be aggressive. But, if they get like 6 or 7 sacks against Taulia Tagovailoa, I'll be all in on this pass rush at that point. That's what I want to see. I want to see them have a big game against legitimate tackles. And I think Maryland right now has as legitimate tackles as anybody Ohio State is going to face this season in the Big Ten play.
Yeah, and I don't expect them to put up a 4 or 5 sack kind of game, but if you can at least pressure him and just make him uncomfortable, that can be enough to swing the game, even if you're not sacking him. I mean, yes, sacks are great because then they put you way behind the chains, and you can potentially really drill the quarterback and get in his head a little bit. But if you can just get him uncomfortable, make him kind of scramble around and throw off platform, I mean, all of that kind of stuff can help your defense just as much. You can get off the field on an incomplete pass on third down because you got the quarterback kind of out of his comfort zone and made him kind of run for his life and have to, throw the ball away. That works. They are just as off the field at that point as they are if you get a sack. So, yes, a sack and a strip. And I mean, we saw the first game, Zach Harrison sacked Tanner Morgan, and Haskell Garrett picked it up and ran it in for a touchdown. Like, yes, that is the platonic ideal. But if they, this is, every time we talk about the defense, it's like, yeah, this is 11 guys working together. It's not just, oh, this one corner is playing well. It's, well, the corner's playing well because the pass rush is getting the quarterback, putting the quarterback in a position where he can't stand there and just pat the ball for 6 seconds. Like, you have to, this is all kind of pieces working together. So yes, they would obviously like a lot more sacks than they have right now, especially from the defensive end spots. But, I mean, it's all trending in the right direction. It feels like they're definitely not there yet, but it's at least kind of trending in the right direction.
It is. And I think they're too talented to not get there, and they'll continue to add some things and feel more comfortable with the back end, which will allow more aggression through with the linebackers. And I keep waiting for Ronnie Hickman to get involved in some of that pressure, or maybe Cam Martinez from a mid-level thing there. In Maryland, as I said, they've allowed 6 sacks. Ohio State has allowed 7 sacks in 5 games. The Terps, I believe, lead the Big Ten in sacks. They have 18 in their 5 games. They are, I would say, relentless and aggressive, but that can also lead to big plays because they are 12th or 13th in the Big Ten in allowing passing plays of 30 yards or more. So they will gamble because I think they have to at times, but you can make some big plays off of it. And I do expect them to get to CJ Stroud a few times, like Tom, if I put the over under on 2.5 sacks, I might go over just because, that two seems low for a program that gets after the quarterback as much as this.
Yeah, that seems, I mean, 2 or 3 is probably at least a reasonable guess. I think if you are, if Maryland has more sacks than Ohio State has 30 or 40 yard plays, then that's good for Maryland. If Ohio State has more 40 yard plays than Maryland has sacks, like that's probably pretty good for Ohio State, because they're somewhat linked, because if you're bringing extra pressure, that just gives you fewer guys downfield. Like, the more guys who are running at the quarterback, this is very simple math. You only have 11 guys. So the more of them who are running at the quarterback, the fewer of them who are downfield. And if the pressure's coming in a consistent way, that's when you run a screen. That's when you run. There are ways to get just get the ball out of Stroud's hands quickly, get it to one of your wide receivers in space, get him in a spot where he just makes one guy miss and then runs for 60 yards. Like, that's Ohio State has wide receivers who can make that one guy miss and turn a short pass into a long gain. I'm going to be interested to see, with all the pressure coming, how does the offensive line hold up against that? Because it feels like Ohio State's offensive line has been pretty good this year. It hasn't been like remarkable, but for, having had to shuffle guys around that line a decent amount this fall, they've been respectable, pretty good in pass pro. It seems like they're giving up like a sack, maybe 2 most weeks, but a lot of times it's sort of, late in the game or in very predictable passing situations. So if they can stay out of very predictable passing situations, that probably helps that pass pro quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. The Maryland defense is giving up basically 2 30-yard pass plays a game. I think Ohio State has a really good shot of doubling that, much like they did last week against Rutgers. As everybody knows, I said they were going to go with or one of us, I forget who, said Ohio State would have 4 30-yard pass plays. I don't remember which of us said it.
I know you're confused because it was correct, but that was me. That was me who said that, and then it happened.
That's right. That's yes. I shouldn't just assume something that is correct came from me, like the time I took that Isaiah Prince photo with Jamarco Jones.
Old stolen valor Gerd is at it again.
But yeah, this game, obviously, we'll see what they do with CJ Stroud and how they protect him. And I expect the running game to be just fine with the Buckeyes. I don't know how much they'll need to turn over Maryland. I just see that I think they will, because that's kind of how things go with Maryland when they play a more talented team. That sort of has an effect on them. Have you perchance set your game, your staff pick into Marquette? I have not.
Oh, I have. So yeah, you can go ahead and make your pick, or I can just tell you what I picked, because we end up picking the same thing every week. So,
well, I have written it down. If you want to go ahead and share yours, and then I will let you know how close. Or, as we can always do it, I give you my score, and then you get angry, and everybody can see your angry face.
I'll give you mine first, and then you can make an angry face. Ohio State 48, Maryland 24. Is this because you picked exactly Ohio State 48, Maryland 24?
No, I don't pick 2 field goals in a game. Are you just saying they're going to miss an extra point? Is that where you're going? Or
I didn't drill down to that level of detail.
I originally wrote down, like 5 minutes ago, 49-24.
Oh.
But then I added a field goal. So I'm going 52-24 exactly for the Buckeyes.
How do we keep doing this? It's not like we sit down and like talk this out. And it was like, I changed my mind. I changed my mind a couple times. I was originally a little lower. I'm like, no, I think I was just going to score more than, I think I originally had like 38-20, something like that. So how do we keep doing this? Like, I know we spend a lot of time talking about football every week, but still, like, I don't think even if you get groupthink, I don't understand how we could possibly be this close every single week.
I do like that being that close, there are still stakes as the game goes on, because it's just, we're going to be decided by like a one score either way. One of us will be the victors, even though there's 9 other people doing it and they may be much closer.
They don't count.
But as long as I beat Tom, that's all that matters.
Not in the Buckeye Weekly cinematic universe, they don't. and again, we are playing Price is Right rules. So it's 51-24. Sorry, you're over. You lose.
I don't know that that's ever been established.
Have you seen The Price is Right, sir? Which state is Drew Carey from? I rest my case.
That's a very good argument, Tom, and I don't like you using it.
Do you feel it's important to have your pet spayed or neutered? Sir, I do. I think we've established we are very clearly in the Price is Right cinematic universe here. 2
points right there. How do you feel about what is your favorite game? Plinko? Is it the one where I like the punch board as well? Like those two.
Mm-hmm. The punch board is a real underrated one. I feel like if you ask anyone, like Plinko is just sort of the everyone's first. It's like that would be everyone's first answer, which is because it is a fantastic game. I always did like the mountain climber. I just like the visual of the mountain climber plunging over the edge of the edge of the cliff. Yeah, I'm the real high stakes putting too, where the closer you got to the prices, the closer you got to make the putt.
What about the dollars? The dollar ones?
Yeah. Every once in a while, you'd see someone drain one from like way downtown, and it was like that was big time.
The putting lost its luster when it was hole in one or two.
Oh,
when they would give you the second chance. The one where you had to guess the price of the car and you'd have to hand over dollars, like however many you were away from it. But Tom, we'll get back to our Price is Right podcast later in the week. So I'm going 52-24. Tom is going 48-24. Very wild differentiations here.
I don't know where you're getting that from. I don't know where. You don't know anything, sir.
Oh, we'll see. And I don't like the fact that if it's 49-24, you'll have won that one because you didn't predict enough points. I did. I predicted
prediction,
enough points.
My prediction for Saturday, $1.
You son of a. All right, that's fine. $2. Except I already bid. So that will do it, Tom. Anything else from today from the Maryland thing? We will be talking more Maryland later in the week. So we've got we'll have the Terps covered. Anything else, Tom?
Nope. We'll have our weekend preview show coming up on Friday. Looking forward to that one. That's this is like we're all of a sudden in the point where it's like, oh, all of these weekends have like a ton of good games. Like this is like we have hit the fun part of the season where there's enough good teams left that inevitably several of them are playing each other. And it's like, there's some high stakes games in the Big Ten this weekend. This is going to be a real fun weekend of college football.
Yeah. Another decisive weekend for a bunch of teams and another opportunity for Ohio State to just keep climbing and see where things go. So that will do it for today's show. Want to thank all of you for tuning in. You can always check us out at BuckeyeScoop.com. We are there on the Ask the Insiders message board as well. If you're not yet a member, feel free to join. Meet us up there. If you're already there, hit us up. We're not doing anything. And then you can also find us at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop for all of our podcasts, all of our streams, all of our interviews, all sorts of stuff like that. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you tomorrow.